So far, the Mahindra Thar has been your only real choice in the mainstream segment if you wanted a car that fully drives home that outdoorsy lifestyle of yours. But that's set to change soon with the Maruti Suzuki Jimny right around the corner in India. So Mahindra have reacted to that already, and you now have this, the Mahindra Thar two-wheel drive. It gets, of course, a two-wheel drive powertrain and a smaller engine. So what is it really like? Let's find out. The Mahindra Thar has always been under 4 meters long. So with this new 1.5 litre motor now being fitted to it, the off-roader can claim the sub 4 meter tax benefits. This should further drive down the Thar's price, opening up a whole new section of buyers. This diesel engine is a 1.5 turbo borrowed from the Marazzo, which makes 117 PS and 300 Nm. This is paired only with a 6-speed manual. The petrol engine option remains the same 2-litre mStallion motor with its 150 PS and 320 Nm, and this can still be had with the automatic. Now this engine might be quite a bit smaller than the big 2.2-litre diesel that you don't get with the two-wheel drive Thar anymore. But it must be said that in terms of outputs, it's not that far behind. It's only 13 PS less and it makes the same exact amount of torque, which means that you don't really miss that big M-Hawk engine all that much. Of course, what you do miss is that great top-notch, really high level of refinement and drivability that that engine gave you. But the trade-off is not bad at all. Of course, this engine is slightly noisier and you can feel a few more vibrations, but it must be said that the clutch actually feels lighter in this. And as Mahindra claims, 55% of that 300 Nm of torque is made just over idle at 1000 RPM, which means that in the city, where to be honest the Thar is really quite good as a city car considering how high you sit up and how easily you can see the edges of the car, it really does do a great job of just moving along in traffic. You can potter along it even in a high gear, it will keep holding revs. So yeah, there's always performance available to you. So in traffic it's not really an issue. And this good demeanor in urban conditions is actually helped by the fact that the clutch doesn't feel quite as heavy and as snappy as it did with the 2.2 litre diesel. The gearbox has changed, it's a different 6-speed manual now. And yeah, we would have liked maybe slightly shorter throws. This one feels a bit too much like, you know, a big old MPV, but not in a bad way because the shifts themselves are reasonably precise. They're just really long and you sort of row through them like this. But yeah, it sort of goes with the whole demeanor of the Thar, as you know, that big rough SUV 4x4. And at higher speeds, you notice that the Thar will get up to 80, 100 of highway speeds reasonably briskly, about as briskly as you would need it to. It's only here in these high speed conditions that you notice that it could have done with slightly more top end performance. It sort of runs out of steam by about 3000 RPM, which means that say you want to make an overtake at higher speeds. We're at 5th gear now. As you can see, progress isn't too brisk, but what you have to do then is drop down a gear or two, which you maybe didn't have to do in the M-Hawk all that often. You have to do that, but again, that is a minor trade-off for what is going to be quite a bit more affordable version of the Thar. Another positive is the improved fuel economy. It's still not as good as a regular SUV, but we managed close to 10 kmpl in the city and 14 kmpl on the highway. You still get all-terrain tires, electronic brake rocking differential, ESP with rollover mitigation, hill hold and hill descent control. In any case, the Thar two-wheel drive will go further and take more beating than most SUVs. So it'll still be great as a weekend machine or if you need to reach remote places often. Without the full safety net of 4x4 of course for those especially tricky situations. As with most Mahindras, the gearing and power delivery also seem to have been tuned keeping this ability intact. Now with the smaller, lighter engine in the front and with no 4x4, it has actually helped the Thar's, handling character a little bit. Now the Thar was pretty decent with its highway manners, but it's now become a touch more alert, so you maybe don't sway and roll all that much as you used to before in the bigger Thar. But again, the changes are minimal. But other than that, the driving experience remains largely similar. So it feels, like I said, a touch more alert to steering inputs than earlier, but aside from that, it's business as usual. So yeah, at lower speeds, we would have liked the steering to maybe lighten up a bit, and in traffic, it's a bit of a chore, to be honest. But here at a higher speed on a highway, it sort of loosens up, it becomes really nice. So that's not a problem anymore. And it's the same with the ride quality. So it'll just pummel through bad roads like they're not even there. But yeah, otherwise you have that typical ladder frame bobbing and pitching, but that's expected. That's always been the case with the Thar, that continues as it is. So the only change on the inside of the Mahindra Thar two-wheel drive is that the 4x4 shifter has now been replaced by a usefully large storage space. So you have a fairly wide and spacious cabin as before for the front passengers, although again the driver's footwell could have been less cramped. As earlier, the rear seat is best for children and getting in isn't the easiest. While the cushioning is great on the seats, they could do with more under-thigh support. The Thar two-wheel drive can be had in both the AX optional and LX trim levels, so the features list remain unchanged, as is the case with the safety credentials. The SUV also did quite well in our panic braking test, staying true to its line and feeling confident under heavy braking. So how do you spot the Thar two-wheel drive from the regular 4x4 version? To start with, these sections of the bumpers in the front and at the back, the middle sections are now black, they're body colored, not the silver ones that you find in the 4x4 versions. Then behind, at the rear quarter panel, there's no 4x4 logo anymore. And also on this side where you have the mHawk logo for the diesel, that's gone because now it's a CRDE engine that this one gets. The Mahindra Thar two-wheel drive seems to do the job it has set out to. It could have done with a more refined motor, but despite losing the 4x4 gear, this is still very much a Thar. It gives you that same sense of indestructibility and most of the rough road capability. The slightly better on-road dynamics and mileage are an added bonus. Now to hope for a price that ducks under Rs 12 lakh to begin with.